Hi, everyone. My name is Haley Evans, and I'm joining you here today from Gatorade. We're excited to be here today to talk about the GX Sweat Patch. The GX system, including the Sweat Patch and GX teams, you will learn about today are based on years of research from the GSSI team. While some of the science you will see today is complex, the science has been validated time and time again, and both the Sweat Patch and GX teams make what was historically a complex process of manually sweat testing much simpler and easy to do for entire teams at once. Before we begin, we wanted to share a bit of news with you about Gatorade Performance Partner. For more than 50 years, Gatorade has supported the sports performance community through science, research, and innovation. Now, Gatorade is continuing that support by providing sports performance professionals, like yourselves, with the tools and resources needed to advance in their careers and help improve the health and performance of their athletes. Gatorade Performance Partner community is built on the fundamentals that we believe have the greatest impact on sports performance professionals at every level: development, performance, and collaboration. Join the community at GatoradePerformancePartner.com to unlock access to exclusive benefits like complimentary CEUs, science-backed resources, and opportunities to discover all the latest that Gatorade has to offer. We're so proud to be here today to talk about the GX Sweat Patch and Teams app, both of which are built upon Gatorade Performance Partner's performance pillar. Through Gatorade Performance Partner, we will give access to new products and innovations to sports performance professionals first. We know having the support of sports performance professionals is key for athletes to trust and use our products. So we look forward to bringing you along for the ride as we launch the GX Teams app and welcome your feedback on this new offering. We know there are improvements to be made to this app and the GX system. Our goal is to continue improving, innovating, and achieving success with your help. Through Gatorade Performance Partner, you receive this exclusive access, and together we can fuel greatness. I now welcome Bridget Cepena from Gatorade Sports Science Institute and Amber Ward from Work & Co. Bridget Cepena is a scientist at the Gatorade Sports Science Institute's facility in Barrington, Illinois. Her main responsibilities include leading GSSI's Saliva program as part of our Elite Recovery Sciences program and serving as lead on the athlete service team. As an athlete service lead, she evaluates athletes in their fields of play to provide them with important information about their individual physiology, hydration, and sports nutrition needs. Bridget is joined by Amber Ward from Work & Co. Amber supports the research, design, and development of digital products at Work & Co. and a longtime Gatorade partner. She has been working alongside the Gatorade Performance and Gatorade Sports Science Institute teams over the last year to launch GX Teams. I will now turn it over to Bridget from GSSI to talk to you about the science behind the GX Teams app.
Thanks for the intro, Haley. As you mentioned, I am a senior sports scientist at the Gatorade Sports Science Institute. My main responsibilities are to assist athletes in their field of play, including sweat testing, to improve their hydration, nutrition, and recovery needs. This platform is personally near and dear to me because it's taking what I do in the field and allowing more practitioners to help their athletes because of it. So today I'm going to be discussing how GSSI played a part in developing the GX Team app. And some of this might sound familiar from the GX patch presentation yesterday, as a lot of this work overlaps. When we first set out to create the GX ecosystem, our goal was to provide athletes with personalized hydration, nutrition, and recovery plans that were truly backed by science. You were walked through the science behind the GX patch by my colleagues yesterday, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the GX bottles and pods, which have been available for some time now. So I'm going to be focusing on the part that GSSI played in the development of the GX Teams application and why this was created for practitioners such as yourself. We spent a lot of time creating this application so it would mimic what GSSI does and provide similar recommendations to what we would when we're in the field with athletes in their field of play. We utilize the same algorithms and leverage the same scientific recommendations to make this as credible as possible so that you are essentially able to have GSSI in your pocket. As my colleagues mentioned yesterday in their GX patch presentation, traditional sweat testing is very time and resource intensive. We were and still are not able to service as many teams and athletes as we would like because there are only so many of us compared to how many teams would benefit from this personalized hydration assessment, which is why GX Teams was created. And oftentimes, If practitioners sweat tested their teams themselves using the traditional sweat testing methods, they'd get their fluid loss results and honestly may have no idea what they mean or what to do with them. There is this now what question following this assessment because they have the sweating rate, but practically speaking, aren't sure how to intervene or what recommendations to make based off of the results they got, which is where GX Teams is extremely valuable and takes care of that completely. Not only does this do the fluid loss and sodium loss calculations, but it also provides the fluid and sodium replacement strategies specific to that athlete. It makes it less overwhelming and takes away that now what issue that I have seen a lot of practitioners run into. And additionally, you can easily do this with an entire team and get those recommendations for each player individually, which, speaking from experience, is a lot of work to do without this technology, if you're doing the traditional methods. And to piggyback off my last slide, typically when GSSI visits a team and does the sweat testing, because of how resource and time intensive it is, we usually would only go one time to do the sweat test. However, with this app and because of how user-friendly it is, athletes are now able to create multiple sweat and sodium profiles to create a personalized sweat and sodium range for the different environments and intensities they compete and exercise at. There's this misconception that one sweat test will apply to all active occasions and that whenever you do it once, that you're good to go for all activities, but that's not necessarily the case. Because sweat rate and sweat sodium fluctuates with various levels of training, environment, clothing, etc., if a practitioner is able to, it is very beneficial to test athletes in various conditions in which they would be competing in. For instance, I live in Illinois, and so a football player here in the Midwest might start their season competing in August in 90-degree weather. And then come October, it could be in the 60s here. So their hydration needs will likely change as those environments change. So being able to do sweat tests in those higher environment and lower environmental conditions to create a personalized sweat and sodium range for that individual athlete is huge. And GX Teams gives practitioners the ability to do that. So within this application, we utilize our GSSI algorithms that we spent years developing. And they're the same algorithms that we use when we go in the field to test athletes in their field of play. Some factors, such as temperature, can be passively collected by inputting your zip code. However, some factors need to be manually inputted, like sex, weight, etc. Our algorithms are implemented in a ladder fashion, so when appropriate, the most accurate sweat rate shows up. The factors within the algorithm include body mass, biological sex, air temperature, sport, exercise duration, energy expenditure, and the GX patch data. So if one of those factors is not available, such as energy expenditure, or using a non-validated sport, for instance, it just limits the app's ability to provide the most accurate whole body sweating rate results. Results will still be provided to you, however, the margin of error will increase. This impacts the accuracy of the fluid intake and increases the risk of overhydration or dehydration. So we recommend only using the patch or app during validated sports to maximize the applicability and accuracy of the recommendations given. And when I say like the margin of error, that margin of error will be expressed through a range in the app. So if you see even on this slide, for instance, this athlete lost approximately 25 ounces per hour. And the margin of error would appear as 23 to 27 ounces per hour. And if you utilize the 7-factor algorithm or all the factors that I listed above, there is a high level of accuracy that your results will fall within that range. And as we do when we provide our own nutrition and hydration recommendations, we base all of this off of the literature, specifically the American College of Sports Medicine and the International Olympic Committee principles and position stands. All of the carbohydrate, hydration, sodium, and protein recommendations within the app that you might receive are based on the literature. And the app just takes your results, determines your needs based off of the literature and off of your individual losses, and then basically lines up the athlete with products that meet all of the hydration, carbohydrate, and sodium replacement needs. And something that I'm super proud of, and I believe sets this application apart from other sports nutrition apps, is the amount of educational content that is available for you. So not only are you benefiting from GSSI's decades of nutrition and hydration research through the algorithms, but you'll also have direct access to GSSI Sports Science Exchange articles and additional and applicable peer-reviewed articles. It's basically a one-stop shop for all the literature you may need regarding sweat testing, hydration, or other various nutritional recommendations and more. And with that, I am going to pass the baton off to Amber Ward from Work & Co., who has been leading this project and working alongside GSSI every step of the way.
Okay. Hello, everyone. As mentioned, have been working on the design and development of this app over the last year. So just going to give you a little bit of a preview of the app. You can download it right now on the App Store, but just wanted to go into depth to provide some additional context on just various features within the app. Okay. Trying to get in here. There we go. So GX Teams provides you with credible hydration and product recommendations for your athletes and allows you to create or join teams, invite athletes to join your teams, schedule workouts, scan athlete GX sweat patches, create reusable sweat profiles, weigh athletes in and out, see athletes with high or low fluid or sodium needs, receive athlete-specific recommendations, and send athletes reminders to hydrate. So here's some GX Teams features. So at its most basic level, the navigation. So the main screens in the app are the schedule, the teams view, which shows all the teams that you have created or joined, an athletes list. So these are all of the athletes that you that have joined your teams or across all teams. So you can just see them at a glance here, and settings. One thing to note in settings is that there is an extremely robust FAQ section, which can tell you all about sweat testing, the GX sweat patch, and other aspects of the app that you may have questions about, or the science. So getting started, when you first open up the app, you're going to be taken through an onboarding flow. So the first thing you'll want to do is sign in. Note that you have to use a GPP login to use the app. So if you don't have one already, you can tap on create an account to do that. And then you have the options to create or join a team. So if you create a team, actually I'll go into detail further. I don't want to spoil anything. You can create or join a team. You can invite athletes to your teams and schedule a workout. So you need to create a team before inviting athletes. So the way the app is set up, basically you need to create a team, invite athletes, and then from there you can schedule workouts to sweat test. So like I said, you can create a team during onboarding, or you can create a team from the team's landing page. And you get a preview kind of what your team name will look like. So you can specify the name, sport, and then this is where you have the option to toggle on reminders for athletes to stay hydrated. So one of those is a reminder that athletes who have GX and have elected to sync their GX apps with Teams, with your team in Teams, will get a pre-workout push notification. And then athletes who have all of the necessary data can get post-workout hydration reminder emails. And we'll look at those a little in more detail further into the presentation. So something else that I mentioned is that other practitioners can join your teams with a code. So when you first create a team during onboarding or from the team's landing page, you'll be given a code that you can share with other practitioners on your performance team so they can view your team, the athletes on those teams and their sweat profiles and the workouts that you have scheduled for those athletes. So as soon as you create a team, you're given this code, you can also access it from the team settings later on. So something that's really important is athletes must be invited to each team. So due to privacy reasons, you are unable to enter athlete data without their prior consent. So that's why you have to invite athletes to your team. You can do that a couple of different ways. You can share a team join URL. So if you, and you can share that via native iOS sharing features. So you can send them an email or send them a text message. with that team URL, and basically will enable them to enter some profile information and join your team. We'll look at what that form looks like. Or if they're handy, you can just show the team QR code and they can scan that QR code on their phone and automatically be taken to that team join URL. So invites allow athletes to join teams and sync their GX apps with teams. So this is what the form will look like when an athlete opens that join code. Well, first they're asked to provide a couple of pieces of information, namely their email address and their birth date, and that kind of helps us understand, or at least check our databases to see if they have an existing GX app download. If so, they kind of have a more truncated form because we can port a lot of their profile information over from GX. But if they haven't used GX before, this is what the form that they would see. And so they enter all the basic profile information, and some of this information is just important for the sweat patch scanning algorithm, like biological sex, weight, and height. You'll note here off to the right that there is an option to sync the GX app. So this is sort of a preemptive option to sync a GX app in the future, should they download it. And so they need to check that box in this form in order to ensure that they can sync the GX app. Unfortunately, there's not really a good way to kind of go back and change your mind at a later date at this moment. We are looking to kind of make that a little simpler in the future, but for now, if you think your athletes would want to do that, just kind of call that up. You can call that to their attention. And we've tried to do that kind of in the design and copy here, make it really obvious that what the benefits are. So you'll note here, and we can kind of discuss further, that they can scan GX sweat patches on the GX app, on their GX app. So basically following a workout, they can enter the workout details in GX, scan their own sweat patch. And if they've synced, those sweat profiles will show up in their athlete profile for your team. So you don't have to do anything yourself. So if you're trying to scan a lot of athletes at once or in a single workout, that can be handy to kind of have the athletes scan themselves. So you have some extra hands to help. And then this also enables them to get pre-workout hydration reminder push notifications via GX if you have scheduled workouts for them. So something else to note here, if an athlete doesn't accept or declines an invitation, so they don't accept meaning they just don't complete the form, or they actively decline, you won't be able to view or input data on that athlete or receive recommendations for that athlete in the GX Teams app. And again, that's just due to privacy and legal concerns. So as I mentioned, athletes with GX can enter workout details and scan their own patches in GX. So following receipt of that form, whether or not they choose to sync the GX app, they will be kind of redirected to this web page where they have the option to download GX. So as I mentioned, if they do download GX and if they do sync with their team, that provides the advantage of being able to scan their own sweat patches and have those profiles show up for you. But regardless, it can be helpful insofar as they can get pre-workout and during, and post-workout training, nutrition and recovery recommendations. Again, all based on GSSI sports science. They also have the option to set goals within the app to either kind of maintain or improve. And in addition, they can receive some additional insights around their recovery, nutrition, compliance with following recommendations and their training load. So something that's worth noting for you is that athletes have profiles for each team they join. And this may seem a little counterintuitive. When we first were designing the app, we had it in mind that athletes would kind of join a school, and that all practitioners or performance practitioners at that school might be able to view their information. But we realized that without having a governing body at each school saying, yes, this practitioner can access these athletes' information, that for now, we basically need to put that responsibility or that ability to decide who sees their information in the athlete's hands. So athletes have the option to join each individual team. So they may choose to accept invitations to some teams, not others, but they have ultimate control over their information. And again, another concern here is that this app was developed with high school practitioners in mind. And so a lot of these athletes may be under the age of 18. We want to be particularly protective of their personal information. So the GX Sweat Patch overview. So Bridget gave you a great, kind of a great preview earlier of the benefits, and you may have attended one of the sweat patch sessions previously. So some of this may be redundant, but essentially how the GX Sweat Patch works is that the sweat patch captures local sweat rate and sodium loss where the patch is applied on the inner left forearm. It's important to note that the algorithm is really only validated for placement in that location. So it's just seen as a good kind of barometer of overall sweat rate. And the algorithm hasn't been validated for other locations. So if you put it somewhere else, the results will likely be invalid or inaccurate. So in athletes, GX Sweat Patch results in profile information, their age, biological sex, height, and weight are used to project their whole body sweat rate and total fluid and sodium loss for a specific activity, condition, temperature range, and intensity range. Here's a little animation view. So this is the sweat rate channel filling, and this is kind of how it would look, albeit in a little bit slower during a workout. And then the sodium concentration channel, bottom right, will kind of get increasingly dark, well, will get darker as the sodium concentration is higher. Okay, always wants to do this. There we go. So something that's important to note is, like Bridget said, athletes should have sweat profiles for the different ways they train and compete. So they should have sweat profiles for those different workout conditions. So for example, a high intensity workout in high heat, they're obviously going to sweat. Their sweat rate may be a little bit different than if they are doing a high intensity workout in a lower temperature. But that being said, these sweat profiles can be reused for similar future workouts. So a lot of the ways that we've designed the app is that you schedule workouts to scan patches because the patch or the sweat profile results are so tethered to the workout details. That's kind of why we did that. But it's also because if you schedule workouts, if athletes have sweat patch scans from similar workouts in the past, basically we can help predict which athletes may be higher or lower needs to kind of give you that at a glance, who should I check in with today? Who do I need to remind to hydrate or make sure they're kind of on top of their hydration and nutrition? So basically GX teams will check to see if an athlete has a matching sweat profile for an upcoming scheduled workout, and matches are found if an athlete has an existing sweat profile for the same activity intensity range, meaning low, medium, or high. And the way that's expressed is in a kind of a 0 to 10 scale. So 0 to 3, low, or 1 to 3, excuse me, low, 4 to 6 would be medium, 7 to 10 would be high. So somewhere within that range. Condition, indoor or outdoor, and temperature range. So that's plus or minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit of the temperature during the original patch scan. Matches are used to predict the athlete's fluid loss and sodium loss for the upcoming workout to generate hydration and sodium recommendations. And we'll see what that looks like in a little bit. But something that I mentioned is patches can only be scanned from a scheduled workout at this time. That may not be the case in the future, but at this moment, that's kind of how it works. You schedule a workout in order to get that capability, again, because those sweat profiles are so tied to the workout conditions. So, and then scheduling workouts generates the hydration recommendations and perhaps more importantly, those athlete reminders. So if you schedule a workout for all the athletes on your team, any athletes who have synced their GX app with those teams will automatically be sent push notifications with reminders to hydrate. And we've heard time and again how hard it can be to get athletes to appropriately hydrate prior to workouts. It also will kind of automate post-workout hydration reminder emails to athletes or help automate that if they have all of the appropriate data. So that may seem like a lot of effort to schedule each workout. Note that you can schedule recurring workouts and you're actually kind of forced to verify the conditions are the same prior to each workout. So you can schedule a recurring workout Monday through Friday, 3 to 5, and before each workout, adjust the conditions, like the intensity may be higher or lower, temperature may be higher or lower, you have the option to do that before each workout. So patch application and scanning. This is probably the most important part of the presentation. So if you're multitasking, this is the moment to tune in. Proper patch application is critical to ensure adhesion and valid results. During the last round of beta testing for the app, the problem that we saw the most was not necessarily with the app, it was actually with the patch application. And so we have kind of made it really hard to miss the patch application instructions in the app by sort of forcing you to go through this checklist prior to doing your first scan. But I'm just going to talk through some of these instructions. So it's really important that the athlete doesn't have any lotion, spray tan, sunscreen on the area where the patch is applied. So you want to clean the inner left forearm with an alcohol swab, again, 2 to 3 inches from the elbow. It's worth noting if they already have applied some sunscreen, lotion, etc. You may want to sanitize a larger area just to make sure that those the sunscreen or whatever doesn't sort of bleed into the patch. Some sunscreens do have minerals, and that can, that has the potential to kind of mess with some of the results, since we are sort of tracking some of those things in the patch. You want to let the area dry completely. This is so critical. If you don't let it dry completely, the area is somewhat damp, the chances of the patch falling off are much higher. So you want to let the area air dry. It's important to air dry it. You don't kind of want to try to dry it with the towel and kind of move things around. Just let it air dry for at least 30 seconds or until it's completely dry. And at that point, you want to apply the patch with the G facing the athlete. It's really counterintuitive as a practitioner to kind of do that. You're probably more inclined to have the G facing you, but it should be facing the athlete, meaning that it's readable from the athlete's perspective. If they're looking down at their arm, they can read the G and it's right side up for them. And then from there, you want to press and hold down on the patch for at least 10 seconds, applying even pressure. You really just kind of want to make sure that all the edges of that patch are adhered to the area. Something that's important to note, and that we were perhaps too bashful to include in this checklist, is that if the athlete has particularly dense hair in that area, you will want to shave that hair off. Reason being is that the patch can just kind of get stuck to the hair and hover above the skin. And if it's not making contact with the skin, we've seen many people kind of send photos, they're like, didn't fill up at all. And it's because it hasn't made any contact with the skin, so it can't absorb any sweat. During the workout needs to be 20 minutes to 2 hours long. Right now, that's the duration that the patch is validated for. So it's not to say that it couldn't be validated for additional timeframes in the future, but that's the current amount of time that it's validated for. And we've since added this to our checklist, but the temperature is also important. So right now it's only validated for 47 degrees to 95 degrees. Recognize that 95-degree upper limit is potentially a little bit low for some regions. Again, that's kind of just the current temperature range that it's validated for. Not to say that that couldn't change in the future with additional opportunities to validate higher temperatures, because it seems pretty intuitive to people that if athletes are training in 100 degrees on a regular basis, you want to test them there. But for right now, it's 47 to 95 degrees. If you try to schedule a workout or scan a patch during a workout where the temperature falls outside of that range, it'll kind of tell you, sorry, we can't generate a sweat result for this workout. As noted in that diagram, the patch's orange channel should show some color, or that's kind of the sweat rate. So if you have an athlete, and perhaps this wouldn't normally happen, or you wouldn't test an athlete who is kind of has a low sweat rate, or evidently doesn't seem to sweat very much. But if someone doesn't sweat very much, and there isn't really any fill in those channels, or the workout conditions are such that they're not sweating much, you're not going to get a valid scan just because there needs to be some orange in that channel. But something on kind of the other end of the spectrum, and I'll kind of go into this, I think I have a slide around this. The patch should not be filled completely. So we've heard a lot of people be like, oh, well, the patch didn't fill completely, or do I need to wait until the patch fills completely? That's actually not what you want to do. So typically you want to scan the patch after the workout, or before the patch fills completely. So If the reason being is if the patch fills completely, it's possible that the athlete continued to sweat after the patch was filled. And we don't know the moment in time when that patch was actually filled. So for example, if the workout's 2 hours, the athlete filled the patch within the first 30 minutes because they're a particularly heavy sweater, but you scan it at that 2-hour mark, their sweat rate is obviously going to look very different if it seems like they filled the patch over 2 hours versus 30 minutes. So if you know an athlete is a heavy sweater, you just want to check the patch at about 20 to 30 minutes during practice, or have the athlete keep an eye on the patch, which is pretty easy. With this new technology, it's kind of fun to just see the progress. So you can scan it before it fills completely. So patch application, patch scanning, what will happen is you'll schedule a workout, and I've kind of skipped over one step. So if you're at the schedule screen, you've scheduled a workout, you can kind of open that workout and it'll show you this workout detail screen. And then from there, you tap this quick actions button, scan GX sweat patches, select the athlete. And then this is where if you have an athlete who has filled the patch a little bit quicker, you can kind of specify that the duration was shorter than the originally scheduled workout time. And then from there, there'll be like a little capture frame that you want to line up with the patch. Note that right now this particular capture is a little bit finicky. So you need to make sure the lighting is good. There's not a lot of glare or a lot of shadows, like for example, the shadow of your phone over the patch or partially over the patch when scanning it. And you kind of have to hold pretty steady. So I know that they're kind of working with the company that did the capture to try to make this, I think, a little bit of a smoother process, but there have been times where if the lighting is not just so, or you haven't held it just so, that you may have to repeat this process several times. Don't lose heart. Oftentimes, I've tried it upwards of 5 times sometimes, but it'll work in the end. So just keep that in mind, and keep it in mind that if that happens to you, like, we're working on making that better. So patch processing time can take up to 60 seconds. Again, something that I think is being looked at. But basically, if that seems like a lot of time to wait, and you're trying to scan multiple athletes, other practitioners who've joined your teams can scan patches for other athletes simultaneously, or as mentioned, if athletes have synced their GX app with teams, they can enter the workout details and scan the patch themselves. So once the scan is complete, you're asked to have the athlete report the workout intensity. And that workout intensity is really used as a means for determining whether the athlete has a matching sweat profile for a current or future workout. And from there, you're asked to enter how much fluid the athlete consumed. And that's so that we can calculate the net fluid loss. So the sweat patch can project kind of overall fluid loss, but we need to deduct how much fluid the athlete consumed during the workout to calculate that net fluid loss, because that's the number that we use to kind of multiply against to determine how much fluid they need to rehydrate. And at the end, you'll see the athlete's sweat profile results. So fluid consumed. This is a little counterintuitive, I think, if there could be potentially counterintuitive, but as mentioned, for a sweat patch scan, we need to know how much fluid the athlete consumed in order to calculate net fluid loss. Similarly, if you scheduled a workout and an athlete has an existing matching sweat profile for that workout, meaning you've scanned a patch for them in the past for a similar workout, you've scheduled another workout, our kind of algorithm or our system is like, oh, they have a matching sweat profile for this workout. The only additional piece of information we do need is just their fluid consumption for that workout, again, so we can calculate net fluid loss and really just the post-workout hydration recommendation for them. You'll also note, and this is probably a good segue, that you have the option to weigh in and weigh out at the bottom here. So very similar process for each of these kind of quick actions here, but you can tap on weigh in, weigh out, select an athlete, enter a pre-workout weight. At the end of the workout, enter their post-workout weight, that will enable us to calculate their fluid loss and provide a post-workout hydration recommendation. So schedule and workout details. I've kind of shown you some of these screens as we've gone along, but I feel like sometimes getting the scanning down and some of those other features down first can be helpful context. So this is your schedule. You'll note that you can see a couple different types of workouts here. So in this scenario, at the top where you see 23 higher needs, 6 lower needs, those are athletes who have existing matching sweat profiles for that workout. So we can, once you've confirmed the workout conditions, basically saying like, yes, the workout is still the same, or no, it's a little bit different. The coach changed it up today, so it's going to be a little bit more or less intense. We can kind of give you this prediction here saying, okay, based on athletes with matching sweat profiles, we think these are kind of the people you might need to spend extra time with. And then from here, you see the workout details. And I'll kind of go into this a little bit more, a little bit further. But if you expand one of these categories here, we've kind of put all these athletes into these different categories. You can expand that, see all of the athletes that fall into that category and their personal hydration recommendations and sodium recommendations for that workout. And if you tap on one of these cards, you can see their product recommendations or review their athlete profile. Kind of gone over it pretty quickly here because we're going to go into it in a little more depth. So as noted before, we're kind of grouping athletes according to their needs. So there are a few different categories here: high sweat rate and sodium loss, just high sweat rate, just high sodium loss, average sweat rate and sodium loss, and low sweat rate. So we've calculated these as higher needs or lower needs. If you expand one of these groups, you kind of see all the athletes who fall under that category. I wanted to break down, speaking of kind of those athlete cards, wanted to break down these hydration and sodium recommendations and where they come from. So if you tap this question icon on the card, you'll get some of the same information in the app. But the pre-workout hydration recommendations are based on an athlete's weight and a 1 hour window before the workout start time. So this particular value isn't decremented the closer you get to the workout. So for example, at 1 hour, we'll show 24 ounces and 15 minutes will show 24 ounces, but obviously we're not expecting an athlete to just down 24 ounces 15 minutes before the workout starts. So just keep that in mind. During the workout, we can really only calculate this information if an athlete has a matching sweat profile. So we have the sodium recommendation and hydration recommendation during the workout if they have matching sweat profiles. This after recommendation right now, you need to enter again how much fluid the athlete consumed. So that's kind of a natural question that happens during the course of a patch scan. Or if you've weighed an athlete in and out, you kind of get that for free. But if the athlete has a matching sweat profile, you just need to ask them how much fluid they consumed during the workout to get that final value. Product recommendations. So we have personalized athlete product recommendations for every workout stage. And this has been kind of, at its face, maybe it's not as exciting to you, but it's pretty exciting to us just given how we worked really closely with GSSI on trying to create these product recommendations or combinations that really are optimized for athlete hydration needs, sodium needs, or electrolyte needs, and their carbohydrate needs, which are kind of, the carbohydrate needs are more mapped to the workout. But we have provided product combinations that are basically saying, like, if you give them these things, you're going to be satisfying their hydration, electrolyte, and carbohydrate needs for this workout. We've also created group product recommendations to offer a sort of shopping list for athletes in a group. And so the thinking here was, if you are trying to figure out what products to grab for athletes during the workout, you may not want to tap into every athlete card when you're just trying to figure out what to bring out onto the field or on the court. So we've tried to aggregate products that are recommended for athletes in a given group. So if 3 of the athletes are, we recommended Gatorade Thirst Quencher for them, we'll say, 3 12-ounce bottles of GTQ, or, X number of pouches of Gator Lights, whatever the case may be here. So you can kind of reference that and say like, okay, these are all the things that I just need to kind of have handy if I want to satisfy these athlete needs. Notifications. So there are notifications for you as a practitioner that you can toggle on or off. So you get the option to toggle these on when you're scheduling a workout, or in the settings view. So if you enable reminders, you can receive push notifications an hour before the workout to confirm the workout conditions. And once you do that, we can kind of remind you or let you know if some athletes are missing sweat profiles for the workout. So again, we've kind of built a lot of the app around this concept of being able to predict athletes who may be higher needs for an upcoming workout, so you can plan accordingly, touch base with them if needed. And this will just say, okay, if you have athletes who are missing sweat profiles for the workout. So if you're trying to get sweat profiles for an entire team, that would just be your cue to grab some sweat patches before going into the workout. If it's a workout that you want to test them for. Notifications for athletes with GX. Again, this is one of the benefits of scheduling workouts, is that it will automate these pre-workout push notifications to your athletes who have synced their GX app with your team and teams. And emails for all athletes. So we recognize that right now, the GX app and the GX Teams app are iPhone apps, and there's definitely a desire and plan to kind of, or intention to release Android versions in the future. But in lieu of that, having Android versions right now, we really wanted to offer some benefit to athletes who have Android phones and may not be able to download GX. So we are sending post-workout hydration reminder emails. And again, we kind of need some information from you as the practitioner to generate those, to kind of calculate those post-workout hydration recommendations, either a weigh in, weigh out, sweat patch scan, or fluid consumed input in order to generate this. So you're probably some of the first to know that we're also kind of working on generating a sweat profile email to athletes. So something that we kind of have heard during testing is that athletes are really interested in their profiles and kind of what they mean. So we are in the process of developing another email that will just automatically be sent to athletes after they have a sweat patch scan, so they can see their profile. Again, if they don't, they can see their profile immediately after the workout and can get some information on kind of what their profile means or what it's referencing. So that concludes kind of the preview of GX Teams. At this point, would love to open it to any questions that people may have, either for Bridget or myself. So Bridget can answer questions related to the science, and I'm happy to answer any questions that may be specific to the app and how it works.
Yeah, Amber, we actually have a really good one, I think, coming off of all of those emails. And I think you'll be able to answer it, hopefully. If an athlete's parent downloads the app, are they able to see the data, or can an athlete share the data with their parents?
So the answer to that is no. So the athlete can download the GX app, and but the athlete can't view the GX Teams app. The Teams app is really just for practitioners, but if the parent downloads GX, we don't have a way for the parent to view the athlete's GX data. The parent would kind of just have to commandeer their phone and be like, let's look at your GX app to see some of that data. And it's cool data. If you haven't used it yourself, totally recommend looking at it, because I could see as a parent it being helpful to see some of the products that come recommended, or the food that's recommended to prep for workouts or recover, and also just to kind of see how that to see the athlete's training insights, like how well they're tracking towards their personal goals, but namely how their training load may be panning out based on how much they're working out. And can I test multiple teams at the same time in the app? We've had this question once before, And I think Bridget and I were like, if you can physically be in 2 places at once, then yes.
Probably not the best decision. You definitely can do it, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
You want to be still present when your athletes have the sweat patch on and be ready to be checking them, like Amber said, within the first 20 or 30 minutes, especially for those higher loss athletes. So you can definitely put multiple teams into the app. If you're a practitioner that oversees a football team and a basketball team, you can have your specific teams, but I would suggest testing them on different occasions and not trying to jump between the 2 teams for best
Yeah.
results.
If you have another practitioner or like performance partner who is like, you know, like with the basketball team while you're with another team, like you two can both be sweat testing at the same, or, you know, be scanning patches at the same time, you know, for different teams or the same team.
Awesome. We've got another one that came in. When the app creates that personalized recommended shopping list, is there a way to purchase the products through the app?
That's a great question, and feature optimization. But at this moment, there isn't a way to do that, but I think it's certainly something that makes a lot of sense, and you know, maybe a feature that we can roll out down the road. That's also something just kind of for the group to know, like we have made a lot of changes to the app, honestly, since some beta testing in like we did some beta testing in January and some beta testing more recently, and we've made a lot of feature updates and improvements to the app based on that feedback, and we still welcome that feedback. So if there's anything that you're like, you know, this would work for me a little better, great. Like we want to know, you know, we realize that we've kind of designed and developed this app, you know, in conjunction with GSSI and practitioners, but those are just a few voices. So would love to hear whatever your thoughts are so that we consider how we can augment the app in the future.
Okay, can I access the GX Teams app on an iPad too?
Great question. Had that before. Right now, it's just an iPhone app. However, you can apparently technically access it on an iPad. I haven't personally attempted to, but it is not optimized for an iPad. So what that means is the scale is going to look really strange and either stretched or squished. So just keep that in mind.
Doesn't look like we have any more questions. We're trying to give it one last call. Otherwise, I think we'll, you know, we're basically at time, but I really appreciate Amber and Bridget for both of you being here today, and all of our participants. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited about the GX Teams app. And if you want to learn more or download any resources, please go to GatoradePerformancePartner.com. They'll all be available for you virtually. And thank you all for joining us today. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Have fun with it.